Seattle-Tacoma International Airport Gate. B-17. The boarding announcement for Alaska Airlines Flight 447 to Atlanta crackles through the terminal speakers, competing with the hum of travelers and the distant roar of jet engines. Marcus Thornton stands near the premium boarding lane, his Armani suit crisp enough to cut glass, his Patek Philippe catching the fluorescent lights. He's on his phone, voice loud and unapologetic. "I don't care if the Gulfstream needs maintenance, Bill. I shouldn't have to fly commercial. Do you know what it's like back there?" The economy boarding line snakes past him. That's when Kesha Washington appears. Worn jeans with a small tear at the knee. Gray hoodie fabric pilled from too many washes. A canvas duffel bag slung over one shoulder, the kind you'd find at a surplus store for $12. She moves quietly through the crowd, boarding pass in hand. Marcus glances up, sees her approaching the premium lane. His expression shifts, eyebrows raised, mouth curling into something between amusement and disdain. "Ma'am." His voice carries. Heads turn. "Economy boarding is that line over there. This section is for people who actually pay for their seats." Kesha stops. Doesn't look at him. Doesn't respond. Marcus turns to Amanda Pierce, the travel influencer beside him, phone already recording. "I swear, some people just don't understand how airports work." Amanda giggles into her camera. "Flying economy today, guys. The chaos is real." Kesha scans her boarding pass at the gate without a word. The agent waves her through. Behind her, Marcus mutters loud enough for the gate agent to hear, probably an upgrade they gave away. Watch her try to sit in first class. Kesha walks down the jet bridge. Her steps are measured. Her breathing is steady. Her eyes scan the walls, the lighting, the door seals, details most people never notice. Amanda's phone captures her from behind. The angle shows the worn hoodie, the scuffed sneakers, the cheap duffel bag. "Economy class fashion, you guys," Amanda whispers to her followers. What Amanda's camera doesn't catch the small, precise scar behind Kesha's left ear, or the way her thumb unconsciously traces the pressure suit marking on her wrist, or the fact that her eyes just tracked the cabin door seal with the precision of someone who's checked thousands of them before. Inside the aircraft cabin, an overhead bin slams shut. The sound echoes like a gunshot. The lights flicker. Just once, less than a second. Most passengers don't even notice. Kesha's head snaps up. Her eyes lock on the overhead panel where the lights briefly dimmed. She counts 1, 2, 3 rows, tracking the electrical pathway with her gaze. No one sees this. No one knows what she's calculating. No one realizes that in less than 17 minutes, the man who just humiliated her will be begging her to save his life. But first, they'll have to believe that a woman in a $12 hoodie knows more about this Boeing 737 than anyone else on board. Row 18, seat C. The middle seat. The worst seat on any aircraft. Kesha slides into the narrow space. To her left, Marcus Thornton has already claimed both armrests, his laptop open on the tray table, wireless keyboard clicking. To her right, Derek Sutton is showing his phone screen to the passenger across the aisle, a pilot's license, photo, private certificate, clearly visible. "Yeah, I fly a Cessna 172, Derek says, voice carrying 3 rows in each direction. "Just got back from Jackson Hole. Flew right through some gnarly weather. You really learn what an aircraft can handle when you're solo in severe conditions." Kesha pulls out her own laptop. It's old, a ThinkPad, from maybe 2015, stickers, peeling corners dented. She doesn't open it right away. Instead, her hands move to her seatbelt. She threads the metal tongue into the buckle. But the way she does it, quick, precise, leaving exactly 2 inches of slack, positioning the release tab where her fingers can reach it in under half a second, that's not how most passengers buckle up. That's pilot muscle memory. Derek glances over, sees the practice motion. His brain registers it as odd, but can't place why. Marcus shifts in his seat elbow, pushing further into Kesha's space. "God, the smell back here? How do people fly like this regularly? Kesha says nothing. She reaches up, adjusts the air vent above her. 45-degree angle, medium flow. The exact configuration that provides optimal cooling without creating drafts that disturb instrument reading or cause sensory distraction during high workload phases of flight. She doesn't think about this. Her fingers just know. From across the aisle, Harold Bennett, 67, wearing a faded navy ball cap, watches her. His eyes narrow. He's seen those movements before, decades ago in ready rooms and cockpits. The economical precision, the absence of wasted motion. Kesha opens her notepad. Not the laptop, an actual paper notepad, spiral-bound, the kind college students use. She begins sketching with a mechanical pencil. At first glance, it looks like doodling. Random lines and curves. Harold leans forward slightly. From his angle, he can see the page. Those aren't random lines. That's a flight profile. Altitude versus distance, with velocity vectors marked at specific points. Derek is still talking, voice rising with enthusiasm. So I had to adjust my cabin differential to 8.5 psi because of the altitude, right? And that's when I really felt the aircraft handling change. Kesha's pencil stops moving. Her voice is barely audible, more breath than sound. 737 max. Differential is 9.1. She didn't mean to say it out loud. Derek's head swivels. What? Kesha looks up, realizes her mistake. Nothing, sorry. No, you said something about differential pressure. Marcus leans forward, inserting himself into the conversation with the casual entitlement of someone who believes his opinion is always welcome. Oh, great. Are we getting free aviation lessons now? What's next? The lady in the hoodie going to teach us about thrust-to-weight ratios. Derek smirks. Seriously, though, where'd you hear that YouTube? Kesha closes her notepad, turns her face toward the window. Gregory Walsh, the attorney in 17D, swivels in his seat. His eyes sweep over Kesha, the worn hoodie, the old laptop, the canvas bag shoved under the seat in front of her, and his expression hardens with the particular disdain of someone who's spent a career judging people by their appearance. Ma'am, he says, his tone dripping with condescension. Are you an aviation expert? Kesha meets his gaze. Her voice is quiet, steady. No, sir. Then perhaps, Gregory continues, you should stick to watching the in-flight entertainment instead of pretending to understand complex systems you clearly know nothing about. Amanda Pierce. One row ahead has her phone angled back over her shoulder. She's recording. You guys, this woman behind me is trying to correct an actual pilot. The audacity of some people. Kesha doesn't react. She simply reopens her notepad and continues sketching. But Harold Bennett is still watching, and what he sees makes his weathered hands grip his armrests a little tighter. Because the way Kesha just checked the overhead panel, tracking the cabin lighting circuits with her eyes, counting the rows, calculating the electrical load distribution, that's not something you learn from YouTube. That's something you learn from thousands of hours in cockpits running failure scenarios until they become second nature. Harold reaches into his wallet. He pulls out his old military ID, faded and cracked. He looks at it then at Kesha, then at the diagram she's drawing. He recognizes that planning style, that method of breaking down flight profiles into segments, annotating each with specific parameters. He hasn't seen anyone do it that way since his own days flying C-130s in Vietnam. The cabin lights flicker again, longer this time, a full 2 seconds before stabilizing. Most passengers don't notice. Kesha's pencil stops. Her eyes track the overhead panels left to right, mapping the electrical system in her head. Her expression doesn't change, but her breathing does. 4 counts in, 7 counts hold, 8 counts out. The same pattern test pilots use to stay conscious during high G maneuvers. Harold sees it. His eyes widen slightly. Miss, he says, quietly leaning across the aisle. Kesha looks up. That breathing pattern? Where'd you learn it? Keisha's eyes meet his for a long moment. Then she looks back down at her notepad. I don't know what you mean, sir. But Harold does. And now he's certain. The woman in the $12 hoodie isn't who she appears to be. The aircraft pushes back from the gate with the familiar mechanical groan of hydraulics and the whine of the tug. The cabin fills with the orchestrated chaos of pre-flight preparation overhead, bins being checked, carry-ons being reorganized. Passengers settling into the uncomfortable reality of commercial air travel. The PA system crackles. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain, James Wilson. We've been cleared for pushback. Flight time to Atlanta today is 4 hours and 20 minutes. Weather looks good, clear skies most of the way. Sit back, relax, and we'll have you on the ground before you know it. Marcus doesn't relax. He's already on his phone, finger jabbing at the screen despite the announcement about airplane mode. His voice rises above the ambient noise. Bill, I don't care what the SEC filing deadline is. Tell them I'll review it in the air. Yes, I have Wi-Fi. It's not 1995. Kesha shifts in her seat, trying to make herself smaller. Marcus's elbow has claimed the entire shared armrest. His laptop bag is partially in her footwell. His energy, loud, expansive, entitled, seems to consume every available inch of space. The engines spool up. The aircraft begins to taxi. Amanda Pierce, one row ahead, has her phone out filming over her shoulder. Flying coach today, you guys. Let me show you the struggle. She pans the camera across the cabin, lingering on Kesha. Look at this woman behind me. She literally looks like she's never been on a plane before. That death grip on the armrest, classic nervous flyer. Keisha's hands aren't gripping the armrest in fear. They're positioned precisely, thumbs along the outside edge, fingers curved underneath the exact grip position used in high-performance aircraft to maintain tactile awareness during turbulence while keeping hands ready for immediate control inputs. But Amanda doesn't know that. Her followers don't know that. To them, it's just another scared passenger to mock. The aircraft turns onto the runway. Engines roar to full takeoff thrust. Derek Sutton, still playing aviation expert to anyone within earshot, raises his voice over the noise. You can really feel the power on these 737s, probably pushing 22,000 pounds of thrust per engine. It's something you appreciate more when you're a pilot yourself. The number is wrong. The 737-900ER uses CFM56 7B27 engines rated at 27,300 pounds, thrust each. But Kesha doesn't correct him this time. She's learned that lesson already. The nose lifts. The main gear leaves the runway. Seattle falls away beneath them. Puget Sound glinting silver in the late afternoon sun, Mount Rainier rising in the distance. 30 minutes into the flight, the seatbelt sign chimes off. Passengers immediately unbuckle, rummage through bags, queue for the lavatories. The cabin settles into the familiar rhythm of cruise, the steady drone of engines, the whisper of air through the ventilation system, the murmur of conversations. That's when the first shudder hits. It's not severe, just a quick jolt, the kind of turbulence that makes drinks ripple in their cups, and passengers glance at each other with mild concern. Derek immediately launches into expert mode. That's what we call convective turbulence. Probably a thermal boundary layer we just crossed. Standard stuff. The pilots would have seen it on radar. Kesha's eyes flick to the window, then to her phone. She opens an app. The interface isn't familiar. Not the standard aviation weather apps most passengers have. This one shows multiple data layers, wind shear predictions, atmospheric pressure gradients, electromagnetic field strength readings. The kind of app that costs $500 a year to access. The kind that test pilots and aerospace engineers use. Derek catches sight of her screen. His eyes narrow. What app is that? Kesha tilts the phone away slightly. Just weather. That's not ForeFlight. I've never seen that interface. Marcus glances over, sees Kesha's old laptop and cheap phone. He scoffs. Probably some knockoff free trial. You know, for people who can't afford real aviation software. Amanda is filming again. The lady with the mystery weather app. Maybe she downloaded it from a sketchy website. Should we be worried she's going to hijack the plane with her phone? She laughs. Her followers will laugh too. But Derek isn't laughing. He's staring at Kesha's screen with something between confusion and suspicion. Because even from the brief glimpse he caught, he could see enough to know that interface is too sophisticated, too detailed, too specialized for any civilian app he's ever encountered. Another shudder, stronger this time. A carry-on bag shifts in an overhead bin above row 15. The cabin lights flicker just briefly, but enough to make a dozen passengers look up. Kesha's fingers move to her wrist. She's wearing a watch-chunky utilitarian, definitely not fashionable. She taps the face twice. A display lights up showing altitude, barometric pressure, vertical speed. It's a military-grade altimeter watch, the kind that costs $3,000, the kind that test pilots wear during envelope expansion flights, the kind you don't find at Walmart. Harold Bennett sees it. His eyes lock on the watch, then travel up to Kesha's face. His expression shifts, recognition dawning, not of her specifically, but of what she represents. "Miss," he says quietly, leaning across the aisle again. Kesha looks up. "That watch. That's a Garmin D2 Delta PX, isn't it?" Kesha's hand drops to her lap, covering the watch. "It was a gift." "From who, an astronaut?" Kesha doesn't answer. She turns back to her phone, but her jaw is tight. Harold sits back in his seat. His mind is racing. The breathing pattern, the seatbelt grip, the flight profile sketches, and now a $3,000 pilot's watch on the wrist of someone supposedly too poor to fly anything but economy. Nothing adds up. Or rather, everything adds up to one conclusion that seems impossible. Before he can pursue the thought further, Gregory Walsh unbuckles his seatbelt and stands. He's holding his phone, scrolling through something. His face is set in the particular expression of someone who's decided they're right and everyone else is wrong. He approaches Paige Morrison, the lead flight attendant, who's preparing the beverage cart. "Excuse me," Gregory says. "I need to speak with you about a passenger situation." Paige looks up, professional smile in place. "How can I help you, sir?" Gregory gestures toward Kesha without looking at her directly. "That passenger in 18C, I'd like to request a seat change. She's making some of us uncomfortable with her behavior." "Her behavior, sir, she's been inserting herself into conversations about aviation, making claims about aircraft systems. Given the current security climate, I think it's prudent to..." "To what?" Paige's smile doesn't falter, but her eyes have cooled. "She's been sitting quietly, sir. For now. But I'm a lawyer. I understand liability. If something were to happen, and there had been warning signs that were ignored, Marcus has unbuckled and joined them." He's right. The woman is acting strange. She's got some weird app on her phone, she's been muttering technical jargon, and she's wearing equipment that doesn't match her appearance. Paige glances past them to Kesha, who is now staring determinedly out the window, clearly aware she's being discussed. "Gentlemen," Paige says carefully, "unless a passenger is disrupting the flight or violating safety regulations, I can't force them to change seats. Has she done anything specific that concerns you?" "She corrected me about aircraft specifications," Derek adds, appearing behind Marcus. "Which is weird because she obviously doesn't have any qualifications." "And you know this, how?" Paige asks. "Because look at her," Marcus says, gesturing dismissively. "Does she look like someone who works in aviation?" The words hang in the air. Paige's expression hardens. 20 years in the service industry have taught her to recognize prejudice wrapped in concern. "Sir, I'm going to ask you to return to your seats. If the passenger violates any regulations, I'll address it. Otherwise, everyone is free to sit where they were assigned." Gregory opens his mouth to argue, but Paige has already turned away, pushing the beverage cart down the aisle. Marcus returns to his seat, radiating frustration. He slumps down next to Kesha, deliberately taking up even more space. Some people, he mutters loud enough for her to hear, need to learn their place. Kesha says nothing, but her hands folded in her lap are completely steady. Not the hands of someone uncomfortable with conflict. The hands of someone who's chosen very deliberately not to engage. Not yet. Flight level 370, 37,000 feet above the American West. The cabin has settled into the somnolent rhythm of cruise passengers napping, reading, watching screens. Kesha hasn't moved in 20 minutes. To the casual observer, she appears to be sleeping, head tilted slightly toward the window, eyes closed. But her right hand resting on the armrest is moving. Tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. The rhythm is precise, deliberate. Anyone watching might think she's drumming her fingers absently to music only she can hear. Harold Bennett across the aisle has been watching for the last 5 minutes. His eyes are locked on her fingers because he recognizes that rhythm. Tap, tap, 80 knots. Pause, check instruments. Tap, 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 V1, rotate. It's the standard call-out cadence for takeoff. The exact timing, the exact pattern drilled into pilots until it becomes muscle memory that survives even sleep. Harold's hands grip his own armrests. His pulse quickens. Because you don't tap out V1 rotation patterns in your sleep unless you've done it hundreds, thousands of times for real. The beverage cart approaches. Paige stops at their row. Anything to drink? Marcus, without looking up from his laptop. Scotch. Neat. Your most expensive. Derek. Coffee. Black. Paige turns to Kesha. Ma'am. Kesha's eyes open. Water, please. Thank you. Paige hands her a plastic cup. Kesha accepts it with both hands. And that's when Derek sees it. The way she grips the cup. Thumb and index finger positioned at precise points on opposite sides. The other 3 fingers spread for stability. The exact grip you'd use for a water container in a high-G environment where any spillage could damage equipment or obscure vision. It's not a natural way to hold a cup. It's a trained way. Derek's engineering brain, the part that got him through ground school and written tests, catalogs the oddity but can't place it. Marcus doesn't notice. He's typing furiously, muttering about incompetent subordinates. But Harold notices he's watching every movement now. The cabin lights dim for the rest period. Most passengers welcome the darkness, a chance to sleep to escape the tedium of flight. Kesha doesn't sleep. She opens her notepad again. In the dim glow of her reading light, she continues her earlier sketches. From Harold's angle, he can see more clearly now. Those aren't casual doodles. They're flight profiles. Altitude versus distance graphs. Velocity vectors marked at specific waypoints. Fuel consumption estimates. Even what looks like engine-out procedures. Alternative flight paths marked with dotted lines. Emergency descent rates calculated in the margins. The kind of planning a test pilot does before pushing an aircraft to its limits. Harold reaches into his wallet. His hands are shaking slightly. He pulls out his old military ID, faded laminated a photo of himself from 40 years ago, staring back. He looks at the ID, then at Kesha's notepad, then back at the ID. The planning methodology is identical to what he was taught in 1975. Break the flight into phases. Calculate parameters for each. Plan primary and alternate scenarios. Annotate everything. They don't teach this in civilian flight schools. This is military discipline. Test pilot precision. He wants to say something, to ask directly. But something stops him. Maybe it's the way she's deliberately keeping herself small, quiet, unobtrusive. Maybe it's the way the other passengers have been treating her. Maybe it's an old soldier's instinct that this woman has her reasons for staying hidden. So he stays silent. But he watches. The PA system crackles. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some light chop as we cross a minor weather system. It's nothing to worry about, but I'm going to ask everyone to return to their seats and fasten your seatbelts. The turbulence isn't severe, just a steady, rhythmic bouncing, the kind that makes drinks dance in their cups and passengers grip armrests. Derek, the self-appointed expert, raises his voice so nearby passengers can hear. This is what we call clear air turbulence, probably from wind shear at the tropopause boundary. Completely normal. Should smooth out in 5 or 10 minutes. Kesha's pencil stops moving. Her eyes flick up to the overhead panel, then to the window. She closes her notepad, opens her phone, the weather app again, the sophisticated one that Derek couldn't identify. Her eyes scan the screen rapidly, reading data, processing information. Her lips move silently, but Harold is close enough to read them. Wrong altitude for convective, mountain wave propagation, lee side turbulence. Her voice is barely a whisper. She didn't mean to speak aloud, but Derek hears her. He turns, irritation flashing across his face. Excuse me, did you just correct me again? Kesha looks up, realizes her mistake. I'm sorry, I didn't. Mountain wave propagation. Derek's voice has an edge now. Where exactly did you learn that terminology? Marcus closes his laptop, sensing entertainment. Oh, here we go. The aviation expert strikes again. Amanda has her phone out camera, already recording. This is content gold, the weird economy passenger trying to show up an actual pilot. Keisha's face colors. I read a lot. You read a lot, Derek repeats, his tone dripping with skepticism. About mountain wave turbulence and lee side effects. In your spare time. For fun. Some people have unusual hobbies, Gregory Walsh interjects from the row ahead, turning to watch the exchange. But perhaps you should stick to reading and stop trying to correct qualified individuals. I wasn't trying to. Yes, you were. Marcus cuts her off. You've been doing it since we boarded. First, the pressure differential comment. Now this. What exactly are you trying to prove? The turbulence hits again harder. The aircraft drops suddenly just 50 feet, but enough to make several passengers gasp. Carry-on bags shift in overhead bins. Someone's phone clatters to the floor. Kesha's hands move automatically. She braces her feet against the floor in front of her centers. Her weight positions her hands in a grip that would stabilize her in violent motion. It's a fraction of a second, an instinctive response. But Harold sees it, and he knows, absolutely certainly knows, that those are not the movements of a nervous passenger. Those are the trained responses of someone who's experienced real turbulence. Not the mild bumps of commercial flight, but the violent, disorienting chaos of severe weather or aerobatic maneuvering. The aircraft stabilizes. The turbulence fades. Passengers relax their white-knuckled grips on armrests and tentatively reach for dropped items. Keisha's duffel bag shoved under the seat in front of her has shifted. The zipper is partially open. Amanda's phone camera, still recording, catches a glimpse of something inside. The angle is awkward, the lighting poor, but for just a moment, something blue is visible. A lanyard, a badge, Boeing corporate colors. Amanda doesn't notice. She's too busy narrating to her followers. You guys, this woman is seriously delusional. Now she's pretending to be some kind of turbulence expert. But the camera has recorded it. The blue lanyard, the edge of an ID card. Evidence sitting in digital storage waiting to be discovered. Harold leans forward slightly, trying to get a better look at the open bag. But Kesha notices the exposed contents and quickly zips it closed. Their eyes meet for a brief moment. Harold nods slowly, a subtle gesture, not confrontational, just acknowledgement. Keisha's eyes widen almost imperceptibly. Then she looks away, but there's something in her expression now. Not fear exactly, more like resignation. The look of someone who knows they can't stay hidden forever. The cabin settles again. Conversations resume. Marcus returns to his laptop, Derek returns to his coffee. Amanda continues filming, but Harold keeps watching, and Kesha keeps her duffel bag zipped tight, her secrets for now still safe. 45 minutes into the flight, the first real warning signs appear. Not dramatic, not obvious, just subtle wrongness that most people wouldn't notice. But Kesha notices. The captain's voice comes over the PA, and there's something in his tone, not panic, not even concern, but a slight tightness that makes her look up from her notepad. Folks, this is Captain Wilson. We're going to be diverting slightly north to avoid some weather buildup ahead. Nothing to be concerned about, just being proactive. This may add about 15 minutes to our flight time, but we'll try to make that up with favorable winds. Sit back and relax. Through the window, Kesha can see distant clouds, dark, towering. The kind of convective buildup that forms when atmospheric instability creates vertical development thunderstorms that can reach 40,000 feet or higher. But that's not what concerns her. She opens her weather app again. The screen loads with multiple data overlays, and there in the upper right corner is a warning she hasn't seen in years. Geomagnetic storm alert, K-index 7, moderate to severe space, weather event in progress. Her blood goes cold. Geomagnetic storms are caused by solar flares, massive ejections of plasma from the sun that when they reach Earth can disrupt everything from power grids to GPS satellites to aircraft navigation systems. She's only encountered one severe geomagnetic storm in her entire career. It was during a test flight of the 787. They lost GPS, their backup inertial navigation started drifting, and the primary flight computers began showing erratic data. They'd landed safely, but barely. She scrolls through the app, checking details. The storm started 20 minutes ago. It's expected to peak in the next hour. And according to the trajectory data, they're flying directly through the most affected region. She looks up at the overhead panel. The lights flicker again. Longer this time, a full 3 seconds. Other passengers notice now. Worried glances, whispered conversations. Marcus lowers his laptop. What's going on with the lights? Derek, ever the expert, probably just a minor electrical issue. These older 737s have some quirks with their power distribution, nothing to worry about. But Kesha can see the pattern. The lights are flickering in sequence row by row back to front. That's not a simple electrical glitch. That's the power management system cycling through load banks trying to maintain stability as some kind of interference affects the primary generators. The kind of interference a geomagnetic storm could cause. She glances at her watch. The altimeter display is flickering too. The barometric pressure reading is jumping erratically. 28.92, 29.14, 28.88, changing too fast to be a real atmospheric variance. The watch is being affected by electromagnetic interference, which means the aircraft's instruments are probably being affected too. The PA system crackles. This time, it's a different voice, younger female, with a slight tremor underneath the professional calm. Ladies and gentlemen, this is First Officer Chen. We're experiencing some minor communication delays due to solar activity. This is affecting some of our radio frequencies, but we have multiple backup systems and everything is operating normally. We'll keep you updated. Communication delays, solar activity. They know about the geomagnetic storm. They're trying to downplay it. Kesha's mind races through the implications. If the storm is severe enough to affect radio communications, it's almost certainly affecting GPS navigation. And if GPS is degraded, the aircraft's flight management system, which relies heavily on GPS for precision navigation, could start giving erratic inputs. She needs to tell someone, the flight attendants, the pilots, someone. But who would believe her? She's a woman in a $12 hoodie who's already been dismissed and mocked. If she raises an alarm about geomagnetic interference affecting navigation systems, they'll think she's hysterical. Or worse, trying to cause panic. Before she can decide what to do, the turbulence hits. Not the mild chop from before. Real turbulence. The kind that makes the aircraft drop, suddenly sending unsecured items flying. The kind that makes overhead bins pop open and passengers scream. The plane drops what feels like 100 feet. In reality, it's probably 20, but the sudden acceleration makes it feel catastrophic. Marcus's laptop flies off his tray table, clattering to the floor. His scotch tumbles after it, amber liquid splashing across the aisle. Amanda shrieks her phone, nearly slipping from her grip. She manages to hold on, but just barely. Several overhead bins pop open. Bags tumble out. Someone's roller suitcase crashes into the aisle, blocking the path. And then as suddenly as it started, the turbulence stops. The cabin is silent for a moment, then chaos. What the hell was that? Are we going down? Oh my God, we're going to crash. Paige Morrison, the lead flight attendant, emerges from the galley. Her face is professionally calm, but Kesha can see the tension in her shoulders. Everyone please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. We're experiencing some weather-related turbulence. The pilots have everything under control. But as Paige walks down the aisle, checking on passengers, her eyes keep flicking to the overhead panels, to the lights that are still flickering, to the emergency lighting strips that briefly illuminated during the turbulence drop. Kesha watches Paige's face, and she sees something there that makes her stomach clench. Paige is worried, genuinely worried, which means the crew knows something is wrong. This is unacceptable, Gregory Walsh announces, unbuckling his seatbelt despite the illuminated sign. He stands blocking the aisle. I demand to speak to the captain. I want confirmation that this aircraft is safe to continue flying. Paige turns. Sir, I need you to return to your seat immediately. The seatbelt sign is, I'm a lawyer, Gregory interrupts. I understand airline liability. If you don't provide passengers with accurate information about safety risks, you're exposing this airline to massive litigation. Now are we in danger or not? Sir, everything is under control. Please sit. That's not an answer. Gregory's voice rises. Other passengers are watching now. Some are nodding. The fear is contagious, spreading through the cabin like a virus. Derek unbuckles and stands too. Actually, as a pilot, I have to say I agree with him. That turbulence was not normal. And these electrical fluctuations, something's wrong with the aircraft systems. Marcus joins them, a wall of male entitlement blocking the aisle. We have a right to know what's happening. How bad is this weather? Can we divert? What are our options? Amanda is filming everything, her phone camera panning across the confrontation. You guys, this is crazy. The passengers are literally having to demand information because the crew won't tell us what's happening. Paige's jaw tightens. Gentlemen, I need you to sit down. Now. Not until we get answers, Gregory says. Kesha watches this unfold with growing dread because she knows what's about to happen. She's seen it before in emergency scenario training. Fear leads to demand for information. Demand for information leads to resistance to authority. Resistance to authority leads to chaos. And chaos in an aircraft emergency is how people die. She wants to say something, to tell them that they're making things worse, that the crew needs to focus on flying the aircraft, not managing a passenger revolt, but she can't, because she has no authority, no uniform, no credentials they'd recognize. She's just a woman in a hoodie. The turbulence hits again, harder this time. The aircraft doesn't just drop at yaws violently to the left, then overcorrects to the right. It's the kind of motion that shouldn't happen in cruise flight. The kind of motion that suggests the autopilot is fighting contradictory inputs. Gregory, Derek, and Marcus are thrown off balance. Gregory grabs a seat back to steady himself. Derek crashes into Marcus, both of them stumbling. In the cockpit, invisible to passengers, but evident from the sudden change in engine tone, something is happening. The engines spool down briefly, then spool back up. Not smoothly, erratically. That's not pilot input. That's the flight management system trying to maintain stable flight while receiving degraded or conflicting data from its sensors. Kesha's fingers tighten on her armrest. Her other hand instinctively reaches for her phone, pulling up the weather app. The geomagnetic storm has intensified. K-index 8 now. Severe. And according to the atmospheric data, they're flying directly through the epicenter of the affected region, the place where electromagnetic interference is strongest, where GPS signals are most degraded, where navigation systems are most vulnerable. They need to divert now. Get out of this airspace before the systems degrade further. But does the crew know how bad it is? Are they getting accurate space weather data, or are they just seeing communication delays and thinking it's a minor inconvenience? Paige walks past Kesha's row, heading back toward the galley. Kesha reaches out, touches her arm gently. "Excuse me." Paige stops, turns. Her professional mask is still in place, but Kesha can see the stress underneath. "Yes, ma'am." Kesha keeps her voice low, trying not to attract attention from Marcus or the others. "The cabin pressure gauge, the one on the overhead panel, has it been fluctuating?" Paige's eyes widen slightly. "How did you—" She catches herself. "Ma'am, I'm not authorized to discuss—" "Check the differential," Kesha says quietly. "It should be steady at 8.3 psi for this altitude. If it's oscillating even slightly, there could be a small leak. Or the control system is malfunctioning." Paige stares at her. "Ma'am, are you in aviation?" Before Kesha can answer, Marcus's voice cuts across them. "Oh, great. Now she's giving maintenance advice to the flight attendants. This is what I'm talking about. She's creating panic with her pseudo-expertise." Amanda swings her phone camera toward them. The economy passenger is now telling the crew how to do their jobs. "I literally can't make this up." Kesha pulls her hand back, shrinking into her seat. "I'm sorry. I just thought—" "You thought wrong," Marcus says. "Lady, let the professionals do their job. You're not helping. You're making people nervous with your conspiracy theories about pressure leaks and system failures." Derek leans over from his seat. "Seriously, where are you getting this information? YouTube read it because actual pilots don't diagnose aircraft systems based on looking at overhead panels." Kesha's face flushes. She looks down at her lap. "I'm sorry. I'll stay quiet." But Paige hasn't moved. She's looking at Kesha with an expression that's shifted from professional courtesy to genuine curiosity. Because that was not the kind of comment a nervous passenger makes. That was specific, technical, the kind of observation that requires knowledge of aircraft pressurization systems. "Ma'am," Paige says carefully, "I'm going to check on what you mentioned. But if you know something about aircraft operations, I need to know." "She doesn't know anything," Marcus interjects. "She's just—" Paige holds up a hand, silencing him. "Sir, I'm speaking to her, not you." The cabin goes quiet. Passengers are watching now. This conflict between the flight attendant and the CEO, between authority and entitlement. Kesha meets Paige's eyes. She wants to explain. Wants to tell her about the geomagnetic storm, about the likely effects on navigation systems, about the need to divert immediately to get out of the affected airspace. But she can see the skepticism in the faces around her, the hostility from Marcus and his group. The camera's recording ready to turn any statement she makes into viral content, mocking the economy passenger who thought she knew better than the pilots. "I'm just a concerned passenger," Kesha says quietly. "I apologize if I overstepped." Paige holds her gaze for a long moment, then nods slowly. "I'll check on the cabin pressure system. Thank you for bringing it to my attention." She turns and walks toward the front of the aircraft. Kesha watches her go, sees her pick up the interphone, sees her speaking quietly into it. At least Paige is taking it seriously, even if no one else will. The aircraft banks slightly a course correction. Through the window, Kesha can see they're turning farther north, avoiding the weather ahead. But are they avoiding the geomagnetic storm? Do they know how serious it is? Harold Bennett, who's been silent through all of this, leans across the aisle one more time. "Miss," he says quietly, so only she can hear, "that stuff you said about pressure differentials and system malfunctions, that wasn't a guess, was it?" Kesha looks at him. This weathered old man with kind eyes and a navy ball cap. She sees understanding in his face, recognition. "No, sir," she whispers. "It wasn't a guess." Harold nods slowly. "Then God help us all if you're right and they don't listen." The lights flicker again. This time, they go completely dark for a full 5 seconds before emergency lighting kicks in. And in that darkness, Kesha feels the first cold touch of real fear, because she knows what's coming. And she knows no one is going to believe her until it's too late. The silence after the lights come back on feels heavier than the darkness. Something has shifted in the cabin. The passengers sense it, an undercurrent of wrongness they can't quite name. Conversations have died down. People are gripping armrests. Eyes keep flicking to the overhead panels, to the windows, to the flight attendants' faces. In the cockpit, something neither passengers nor crew can see is beginning. Captain James Wilson, 52 years old. 15,000 hours of flight time blinks hard. His vision has gone slightly blurry. He shakes his head, trying to clear it. "You okay, Jim?" First Officer Tara Chen asks. She's 29 sharp, one of the youngest first officers on the Alaska Airlines roster. "Yeah, just dizzy. Probably dehydration." Wilson reaches for his water bottle, takes a long drink. But it's not dehydration. The cabin pressure seal damaged by electromagnetic interference affecting the control system has been leaking slowly for the past 20 minutes. So slowly that the cabin altitude warning hasn't triggered yet. The aircraft cabin altitude has crept from 8,000 feet to 8,500, then 9,000. Not enough to cause immediate symptoms, just enough to start affecting judgment, coordination, decision-making. Tara feels it too, a slight headache building behind her eyes, mild shortness of breath that she attributes to the coffee she drank too fast. Neither of them realizes they're in the early stages of hypoxia. In the cabin, Dr. Robert Hayes, retired cardiologist, 30 years of practice, stands from his seat in row 22. He needs to use the lavatory. He walks down the aisle, and Paige Morrison notices immediately. His gait is slightly unsteady, not drunk, but off, like someone walking on a boat in mild seas. "Sir," Paige touches his arm gently as he passes. "Are you feeling all right?" Dr. Hayes stops, considers. "Actually, now that you mention it, I'm feeling a bit lightheaded. Probably just the altitude, or maybe I'm coming down with something." Kesha's head snaps up. She's been listening to every word. Lightheaded, at cabin altitude. She glances at the overhead panel again. The cabin altitude indicator, visible if you know where to look, shows 9,200 feet now. Still within normal parameters, but climbing. And if Dr. Hayes is feeling symptoms at 9,200 feet, that means he's more sensitive than average. Which means younger, healthier people might not feel anything yet. Which means the pilots might not realize anything is wrong. Kesha leans forward, speaks quietly to Dr. Hayes as he steadies himself against her seat. "Doctor, are your fingers tingling at all? Any difficulty concentrating?" Dr. Hayes looks at her, surprised. "Yes, actually. How did you know?" "Those are early hypoxia symptoms. The cabin pressure." Marcus explodes. "Are you kidding me right now?" His voice is loud enough that half the cabin turns to look. First you're a weather expert, then an aircraft systems specialist. Now you're diagnosing medical conditions. Marcus stands looming over her. "Lady, I don't know what your angle is, but this stops now. You're creating panic with your amateur hour conspiracy theories." Amanda's phone is already out camera rolling. You guys, she's doing it again. Now she's trying to convince a doctor that everyone has altitude sickness. This is literally insane. Derek joins in. Look, hypoxia doesn't happen at cruise altitude in a pressurized aircraft. That's impossible. The cabin altitude is maintained at 8,000 feet. If there was a pressure problem, alarms would be going off. Not if the leak is slow enough, Kesha says quietly. Not if the warning system threshold hasn't been reached yet. Gregory Walsh stands pointing at her. That's it. I'm documenting this. You're attempting to incite panic. That's a federal offense under aviation security regulations. Dr. Hayes holds up a hand. Actually, she might have a point. I am experiencing symptoms consistent with mild hypoxia. Because she planted the idea in your head, Marcus snaps. It's called the power of suggestion. She says you have symptoms so suddenly you feel them. I'm a cardiologist, Dr. Hayes says firmly. I know the difference between suggestion and physiological symptoms. But Marcus isn't listening. He turns to Paige, who's been watching this exchange with growing concern. I'm formally requesting that this passenger be restrained or moved. She's disrupting the flight. Sir, she hasn't violated any regulations. She's spreading false information about a safety issue. That's disruption. Before Paige can respond, the cockpit door opens. First Officer Tara Chen steps out, and Kesha sees it immediately. Tara's face is pale. Her breathing is slightly rapid. Her pupils are dilated. She's gripping the doorframe a little too tightly, like someone who's not entirely certain of their balance. Classic hypoxia signs. Paige sees it too. Her professional mask slips for just a moment. Tara, are you okay? Fine, Tara says automatically, but her voice is slightly slurred. Just barely. Captain asked me to do a cabin check. Make sure everyone's comfortable. That's a lie. Kesha can tell. Tara came out because something felt wrong, and she doesn't know what. Tara's eyes scan the cabin. They land on Kesha, and something passes between them. Recognition, but not of identity. Recognition of a shared understanding. Kesha sees someone in trouble. Tara sees someone who's looking at her with clinical assessment rather than fear. Ma'am, Tara says, walking toward Kesha's row. Have we met before? No, Kesha says. But you need to sit down, and you need to put on oxygen. The cabin goes silent. Tara blinks, confused. What? You're hypoxic. Mild but progressing. You need supplemental oxygen immediately. Derek laughs. Actually laughs. Oh my God. Now she's diagnosing the first officer. This is unbelievable. I'm not sick, Tara says, but there's uncertainty in her voice. Because she knows she doesn't feel right. She just can't pinpoint why. Check the cabin pressure differential gauge, Kesha says urgently. Check it now. It should be steady at 8.3 psi. I'm betting it's oscillating, dropping. Tara stares at her. How do you know about... A sound cuts through the conversation, distant but unmistakable to anyone who's spent time in aircraft. A chime, 3 tones, rising pitch, cabin altitude warning. Tara's face goes white. She spins, rushes back toward the cockpit. Through the briefly open door, passengers catch a glimpse of Captain Wilson. He's slumped forward slightly. His hand is on the yoke, but his movements are sluggish, uncoordinated. The door closes, but the image has been burned into everyone's consciousness. The captain is not okay. Chaos erupts in the cabin. Someone screams. Someone else starts praying. A child begins crying, which triggers other children to cry. Amanda is filming everything, her voice shrill with panic. Oh my God, you guys, something is seriously wrong with the pilots. We need to... I don't know what we need to do. Marcus, for once, is speechless. The color has drained from his face. Gregory pulls out his phone, trying to make a call despite airplane mode. We need to contact authorities. This is an emergency. Derek sits frozen, his pilot's ego shattered by the realization that he has no idea what to do in this situation. Harold Bennett stands. His voice cuts through the chaos with the authority of someone who's commanded men in crisis. Everyone sit down and be quiet. The cabin noise drops by half. People respond to command voice even when they don't know why. Harold looks at Kesha. Miss, you saw this coming. You tried to warn them. What happens now? All eyes turn to her. The woman in the $12 hoodie. The woman they've been mocking for the past hour. Kesha's voice is steady. Now we hope the pilots can put on their oxygen masks and recover. If they can't, she doesn't finish the sentence. She doesn't need to, because everyone in the cabin just realized the same terrible truth. If the pilots can't recover, this aircraft, full of 183 people, has no one to fly it. And the woman who might be able to help is someone no one believes. 3 minutes of terrible silence. Then Paige Morrison's voice, over the PA trembling despite her training. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a medical emergency in the flight deck. Is there a doctor on board? Please identify yourself immediately. Dr. Hayes is already moving. He rushes forward. Paige opening the cockpit door just enough to let him through. 2 minutes pass. They feel like hours. When the door opens again, Dr. Hayes' face tells the story before his words do. He speaks to Paige, but nearby passengers, including Kesha's Rao, can hear every word. Captain is unconscious, severe hypoxia. The first officer is also affected, but she's conscious and fighting it. They've got oxygen on now, but the captain isn't responding. Tara says the autopilot disengaged, and she's trying to fly manually, but she's compromised. Paige's professional composure cracks. Is she able to? Barely. We need someone else who can fly. Now. The PA system crackles. Paige's voice is no longer steady. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an emergency. We need anyone with pilot experience to identify themselves immediately. If you have any flight training at all, please press your call button now. One call button lights up. Row 18, Derek Sutton. He stands chest-puffed with false confidence. I'm a pilot. Commercial license. I can help. Paige's relief is visible. What aircraft types? Cessna 172, Piper Cherokee 6. I've got 400 hours. The relief vanishes. Single engine only? Yes, but the principles are the same. Stick and rudder skills transfer across. This is a 737-900ER, Dr. Hayes interrupts. Completely different systems automation procedures. Have you ever flown anything with a glass cockpit, fly-by-wire controls, multi-engine coordination? Derek's confidence wavers. Well, no, but I've studied. Studying isn't flying. Harold Bennett says from across the aisle. Not in something this complex. Another call button lights up. Row 18, Seat C. Kesha Washington stands slowly. Marcus grabs her arm. You've got to be joking. Kesha pulls free gently but firmly. I have type rating on 737. The cabin erupts. This is insane. She's lying. We're going to die because of some crazy woman. Paige fights through the noise. Ma'am, I need to see proof, credentials, anything. Kesha reaches under the seat, pulls out her duffel bag. She unzips it, retrieves a laminated ID card, Boeing corporate blue, her photo. Test pilot authorization clearly visible. She hands it to Paige. Paige's eyes widen. You're a Boeing test pilot. Was retired 18 months ago. Derek snatches the ID from Paige's hand. This could be fake. Anyone can get these printed online. Without current credentials, she has no authority to... A voice crackles over the cabin speakers. Tara's voice weak and slurred. We're descending through 25,000 feet. I need help up here. Derek, please. Derek's face goes pale, but he nods, moves toward the cockpit. Marcus blocks Kesha. You're not going anywhere near those controls. Sir, if she can help, Paige begins. If, we're supposed to gamble everyone's lives on if. Get the real pilot up there. Derek disappears into the cockpit. 90 seconds later, he returns. His face is gray. His hands are shaking. I can't, he whispers. The systems there are so many screens, so many warnings, and she's barely conscious. I can't do this. I can't. The words land like physical blows. Gregory stands, voice rising to a shout. Then get someone who can radio for help. Surely there's another pilot on board. There isn't, Paige says flatly. We checked the passenger manifest. Derek and her. She gestures to Kesha. Then we're dead, Amanda says, phone still recording. We're all dead because the only other pilot is some woman with an expired ID who probably bought it on eBay. Kesha speaks quietly, but her voice carries 8,500 hours, 7 years testing 737 variants. I've flown scenarios worse than this in simulators and in real aircraft. I can help. Or you'll kill us trying, Marcus spits. I will not let an unqualified person. She's more qualified than anyone else on this plane. Harold interrupts, standing shoulder to shoulder with Kesha. You want credentials? I flew C-130s for 20 years. I know pilot bearing when I see it. I've been watching her since we boarded. She's the real deal. Marcus doesn't move. Over my dead body. Kesha looks him in the eye. Sir, if we don't stabilize this aircraft in the next 3 minutes, your dead body will be the least of everyone's concerns. The condition is set. The crisis is clear. But the human obstacle, Marcus's physical presence blocking the aisle, backed by Gregory's legal threats, and Amanda's documenting phone remains, until Paige makes a decision. Move, now, or I'll have you restrained. You can't, under federal aviation regulations. I have authority to do whatever is necessary to ensure flight safety. That includes restraining passengers who interfere with emergency procedures. Move, or I get the zip ties. Marcus, faced with the reality of physical restraint being documented on Amanda's phone, steps aside. Kesha walks toward the cockpit. Harold follows. I'm coming with you. You might need a second set of hands. The cockpit door opens. Kesha steps through into chaos. The cockpit is small, cramped, and currently a disaster. Captain Wilson is slumped in the left seat, oxygen mask on, but unresponsive. His chest rises and falls, so he's breathing, but his eyes are closed, skin ashen. Tara Chen is in the right seat, hands on the yoke, but her movements are erratic, over-controlling, the classic sign of cognitive impairment. Warning lights illuminate the panel like a Christmas tree. Master caution. Cabin altitude. Autopilot disconnect. Low voltage. Kesha's eyes scan the panel in less than 2 seconds. Her brain catalogs the failures, prioritizes the responses, builds a mental checklist. She slides into the observer seat behind Tara. Tara, look at me. How many fingers? Tara glances back. Her eyes take too long to focus. 3. Kesha is holding up 2. You're hypoxic. Your mask isn't working properly. She leans forward, checks the oxygen flow indicator on Tara's mask. It's barely showing flow. The hose connection is loose. Your mask seal is broken. You're only getting partial oxygen. Kesha reaches over, adjusts the connection. The flow indicator jumps to full. Tara takes several deep breaths. After 30 seconds, her eyes begin to clear. Oh God, I couldn't think. Everything was... I know. Keep breathing. I need you to stay on oxygen and help me. Kesha moves to the captain's seat. She doesn't ask permission. There's no time. She puts her hands on the yoke, and 20 years of training takes over. The feel of the controls, the feedback, the response. It's different from the aircraft she tested, but the principles are the same. Tara, I need you to pull circuit breaker A23, upper panel left side. But that's the cabin pressure autocontroller. We need it for its malfunctioning. The electromagnetic interference corrupted its logic. It thinks we're in climb mode. That's why cabin altitude kept rising. We need manual control. Tara hesitates for only a second. Then her training kicks in. When a crisis exceeds your ability to handle it alone, you trust the people trying to help. She pulls the breaker. Immediately, the cabin altitude stabilization. The gauge holds steady at 11,400 feet, still high but no longer climbing. Kesha reaches overhead, pulls the passenger oxygen mask deployment handle. Throughout the cabin, oxygen masks drop from overhead compartments. Passengers scream, then scramble to put them on. Kesha keys the PA. Her voice is calm, authoritative textbook pilot cadence. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Kesha Washington in the flight deck. I've temporarily assumed controls from the first officer. Please secure your oxygen masks as demonstrated in the safety briefing. We're descending to a safer altitude. Everyone remain calm and seated. In the cabin, jaws drop. Marcus looks like he's been punched. Amanda's phone captures every moment, but Harold Bennett is nodding a slight smile on his weathered face. Told you, he mutters to no one in particular. Kesha's hands move across the panel with practiced efficiency. Throttles back, nose down. Descent rate established at 2,000 feet per minute. Tara, can you help me with communications? I need to declare emergency. Tara nods, more clear-headed now. What frequency? Try Seattle Center, 124.9. Tara switches the radio. Static, heavy static. Geomagnetic interference, Kesha says. Try Guard, 121.5. Tara switches. The static clears slightly. Seattle Center, Alaska, 447 emergency, emergency, emergency. A voice crackles back. Alaska 447, Seattle Center, go ahead. Seattle 447 is squawking, 7700. Captain incapacitated, hypoxia, event navigation systems compromised. Requesting priority handling and vectors to nearest suitable airport. 447, understand, emergency declared. Who is flying the aircraft? Kesha takes the mic. Seattle, this is a Boeing test pilot, current on type. I have controls. Silence. Then 447, say again, test pilot. Affirmative. Boeing authorization, November Tango, 237. I need vectors immediately. Another pause. 447, stand by for verification. But there's no time to stand by, because Tara is staring at the navigation displays. Kesha, we have a problem. The GPS displays show error messages. The inertial navigation system is drifting. The flight management computer has defaulted to basic mode. They've lost navigation, no GPS, no accurate position, no autopilot. They're flying blind through electromagnetic chaos with an incapacitated captain and fuel that won't last forever. Kesha's mini payoff stabilizing the pressure and taking control has bought them time, but the crisis is far from over. 20,000 feet, descending, oxygen mask deployed, captain unconscious, navigation dead, and then it gets worse. Kesha, Dr. Hayes' voice from behind them, urgent. The captain's not responding to oxygen. Pulse is weak. I think he's had a stroke or cardiac event. He needs immediate medical attention on the ground. Layer 1 of the catastrophe. Seattle Center 447. We need the nearest airport with medical facilities. Captain requires immediate hospitalization. The static-filled response, 447 nearest suitable, is Boise bearing 165, approximately 110 miles. But the bearing means nothing without GPS. Tara is manually tuning VORs, old-school navigation beacons. VOR signals are weak. Too much interference. I'm getting bearing drift. Layer 2. Through the windscreen, Kesha sees lightning. Not distant anymore. Close. The dark clouds they were trying to avoid have shifted course, driven by the jet stream that the geomagnetic storm has destabilized. The aircraft shudders. Not turbulence. Something else. A grinding vibration through the controls. Kesha's eyes snap to the engine instruments. Anti-ice system failure. Ice is accumulating on the wings visible through the cockpit side windows as a white rime building on the leading edges. Layer 3. Manual anti-ice activation. Kesha orders. Tara's hands fly to the overhead switches. Nothing. It's not responding. The system is locked out. Ice on wings means reduced lift, increased drag, higher stall speed. They'll need more fuel to maintain altitude and speed. Which brings Layer 4. Fuel state. Kesha asks, though she can already see the gauge. 2,400 pounds. At current consumption, maybe 35 minutes. 35 minutes to find an airport they can't navigate to in weather that's closing in with ice building on the wings and a captain who needs immediate medical care. In the cabin, the situation is deteriorating faster than the aircraft. Gregory Walsh has reached his breaking point. He unbuckles. Despite the oxygen mask, stumbles forward to the cockpit door, pounds on it with both fists. Open this door. I'm invoking passenger rights. We demand a qualified pilot. This woman is going to kill us all. Other passengers join in. Get Derek back in there. Call for help. Why are we still descending? Amanda is still filming her voice, rising to a shriek through the oxygen mask. We're going to crash. She doesn't know what she's doing. Someone stop her. Marcus, who's been silent since Kesha entered the cockpit, finally finds his voice. Paige, get her out of there. Get anyone else, there has to be someone. Harold positions himself at the cockpit door, physically blocking the growing mob. Back off, all of you. She's the only chance we have. Says who? Gregory shouts. Some retired military burnout. We have legal rights. Inside the cockpit, another alarm. High-pitched insistent. Tara's oxygen mask hose detaches. The connection finally fails under pressure. She gasps, immediately feeling the effects. Her hands slip from the controls. I can't breathe. Dr. Hayes lunges forward, trying to reconnect the hose, but it's damaged. He grabs the spare oxygen bottle, holds it to Tara's face manually, which means he can't monitor Captain Wilson anymore. Kesha is now alone at the controls. Captain unconscious. First officer incapacitated. Ice building. Fuel critical. Navigation dead. Weather closing in. And a mob literally trying to break down the door. The radio crackles. Alaska 447 Seattle Center. We've contacted Boeing test operations for verification of your credentials. Finally, validation is coming. Your authorization code checks out partially, but we show your last logged flight in a 737 was 18 months ago. Is that correct? Kesha's heart sinks. Affirmative. 18 months. 447. That's a significant gap. Are you confident you can execute an approach in these conditions with degraded instruments? Before she can answer a new sound. The cabin altitude warning alarm. Again, the temporary fix wasn't enough. The pressure seal has failed further. Cabin altitude is climbing again despite the breaker being pulled. 9,000 feet, 10,000, 11,000. At 14,000 feet, supplemental oxygen becomes mandatory. At 15,000 feet, even with oxygen time of useful consciousness is limited. Marcus's voice is audible through the door, screaming, "She's failing. Everything is failing. Someone else needs to fly." Gregory, I'm a lawyer. I will personally ensure every person involved in letting this unqualified woman touch those controls is held criminally liable. Kesha closes her eyes. 2 seconds. Standard pilot technique for resetting cognitive load. When she opens them, her voice is absolutely steady. Seattle Center, Alaska, 407. I've test-flown scenarios worse than this in development aircraft with zero backup systems. I'm qualified, but I need immediate vectors, and I need them now. We have less than 30 minutes of fuel, and I'm now single-pilot operation. 447. Copy. Stand by for vectors. But the pause is too long. They're making decisions. Command decisions about whether to trust her, and in that pause, time is running out. The radio breaks the silence. Alaska, 4447, Seattle Center. We have your vectors. Turn right, heading 140. Descend and maintain 14,000. Boise Airport is at your 12 o'clock 98 miles. Kesha's hands move immediately. Right turn. Nose down slightly to maintain descent rate while turning. Throttles adjusted to compensate for the ice drag. Tara, she says, her voice calm despite the chaos behind her. Can you read back that clearance? Tara, still on manual oxygen from the bottle Dr. Hayes is holding, manages a weak nod. 447. Right heading 140. Descend, maintain 14,000. It's slurred, but functional. Good enough. Seattle copies 447. Be advised, Boise weather is reporting light snow visibility 3 miles, ceiling 2,000 overcast. Runway 10 right is available, length 9700 feet. Emergency equipment is standing by. 9,700 feet of runway. Enough. Barely, if she can get them lined up on the first try, because with this fuel state, there won't be a second try. Kesha checks the magnetic compass, the old-school backup that doesn't rely on GPS or electronics. 140 degrees. The heading matches what ATC gave them. At least something is working. Behind her, Dr. Hayes speaks quietly. Captain Wilson's vitals are stabilizing, pulse is stronger, but he's still unconscious. Whatever happened, stroke, cardiac event, severe hypoxia. He needs a CT scan and immediate intervention. Understood, Kesha says. We'll be on the ground in 15 minutes. If everything goes right, the aircraft continues to descend 14,000 feet, 13,000, 12,000. The cabin altitude is still climbing, though slower now that they're descending. It peaks at 13,200 feet, then begins to drop as the outside air pressure increases with their descent. Passengers are starting to recover from the oxygen deprivation. The masks are still deployed, still necessary, but the panicked gasping has subsided into steady breathing. In the cabin, Harold Bennett maintains his position at the cockpit door. The mob has backed off slightly, not from trust, but from exhaustion. Fighting takes energy, and at altitude with adrenaline crash setting in, most people just want to survive. But Marcus Gregory and Amanda remain alert, watching, waiting for any sign that Kesha is failing, so they can justify their earlier condemnation. Derek Sutton sits in his seat, head in his hands. The weight of his inadequacy presses down on him. He'd wanted to be the hero. Instead, he discovered that YouTube videos and 400 hours in a Cessna mean nothing when systems you don't understand are failing in ways you've never imagined. Paige Morrison moves through the cabin, checking on passengers, projecting calm. But every few minutes, her eyes flick to the cockpit door, wondering, hoping. Inside the cockpit, Kesha's eyes never stop moving, scanning instruments, cross-checking against the magnetic compass, monitoring fuel flow, calculating descent rate, watching the ice accumulation on the windscreen wipers. She's doing the work of 3 people, pilot, flying pilot, monitoring, and flight engineer, all while managing degraded systems in IMC conditions with a mob literally wanting to pull her out of the seat. Tara, I need you to try something. Pull up the standby flight instruments on the right side backup display. Tara's fingers fumble with the controls, but she manages it. The small backup screen shows basic attitude, airspeed, and altitude. No GPS, no fancy navigation, just raw data. Good. Watch those. If my primary displays fail, you call out the backups. Can you do that? Yes. Tara's voice is stronger now. The oxygen is working. She's recovering. Alaska 447 Center. How are you handling at this time? Kesha keys the mic. Center 447, we're stable in descent. Fuel is critical, showing 1,900 pounds. Once we're established on approach, we'll need priority for straight in. No delays? 447, Roger. You'll be number 1. All other traffic has been cleared from your path. Number 1. Priority handling. The entire airspace is being rearranged to give them a clear shot at the runway. It should be reassuring. Instead, it's terrifying, because it means every controller, every pilot, every airline dispatch center monitoring this frequency knows that Alaska 447 is hanging by a thread. One mistake, and it's over. The aircraft breaks through the cloud layer at 11,000 feet. Below them, the ground is visible snow-covered mountains, frozen lakes, small towns scattered across Idaho, and in the distance, the lights of Boise. I have the airport, Kesha says. Visual contact. It's still 40 miles away, a tiny cluster of lights in the darkness, but it's there. Real. Reachable. Tara, I need you to configure. Flaps 5 when I call for it. Flaps 5 ready. Kesha glances at the fuel gauge. 1,750 pounds. Maybe 12 minutes at current consumption. The airport is 10 minutes away if they maintain this descent profile. They're going to make it. Maybe, unless something else breaks. Alaska 447, contact Boise Tower on 118.3. Good luck. 1 to 18.3, 447. Thanks for your help. Tara switches the radio frequency. Her hands are steadier now. The oxygen has cleared most of the cognitive fog. Boise Tower, Alaska 447, with you descending through 10,000. Alaska 447, Boise Tower. Winds are 090 at 12, gusting to 18. Runway 0 right straight in approach cleared. How do you plan to navigate the approach? Your transponder is showing no GPS data. Kesha takes the mic. Tower will be flying visual approach with backup raw data. ILS available. Affirmative ILS runway 10 right is available, but with your navigation issues, we're not confident you'll be able to track it reliably. Copy. We'll use it as cross-check. Primary navigation will be visual and magnetic compass. There's a pause. Then a different voice comes on older, seasoned carrying authority. 447. This is Boise Tower Supervisor. I need confirmation you're attempting a visual approach in night IMC conditions with partial panel and degraded navigation. Is that accurate? Affirmative. Another pause. 447. I flew F-16s for 20 years before this job. I've seen a lot of approaches. What you're attempting, most pilots wouldn't try it. I've done worse in test scenarios. Test scenarios have reset buttons. This doesn't. What's your call sign, pilot? Kesha hesitates. It's been 18 months since anyone used her call sign. She left it behind with the uniform the squadron patches the life she walked away from. But right now, 183 people need her to be that person again. Call sign Atlas. Silence on the frequency. Then softer. Atlas. Copy. The name's familiar. Can't place it right now. But if you're who I think you are, you'll get them down safe. In the cabin, Harold Bennett's head snaps up. His old fighter pilot instincts are screaming. Atlas isn't a common call sign, and the way the tower's supervisor reacted recognition without full memory suggests someone with a reputation. Harold pulls out his phone. Airplane mode is still on, but he switches it off briefly, just long enough to open a browser. He searches Atlas call sign pilot Boeing. The results load. His eyes go wide. Kesha Atlas Washington, senior test pilot, Boeing commercial aircraft. Led certification testing for 737 MAX after grounding. Conducted extreme envelope expansion flights, including high-altitude engine-out scenarios and full electrical failure recoveries. Recipient of the Boeing Distinguished Test Pilot Award 2022. He reads further. There's a note about her leaving Boeing in 2023 for family reasons. No details beyond that. But the credentials are undeniable. This isn't just a qualified pilot. This is someone who's tested the absolute limits of the aircraft they're currently flying. Harold looks toward the cockpit door, then at Marcus, who's still watching with barely contained hostility. Harold makes a decision. He crosses the aisle, leans over, shows Marcus his phone screen. Read that, now. Marcus glances at the screen. His expression shifts from hostility to confusion to something like shock. This could still be fake. She could have stolen. She quoted her Boeing authorization code to ATC. They're verifying it. If it was fake, they'd know by now. Gregory Walsh, overhearing, leans in. Let me see that. He reads. His lawyer's mind processes the implications. If this woman is who the search results claim, and they forced her out of the cockpit or prevented her from helping, the liability would be catastrophic. Not just for the airline, for every passenger who interfered, including him. Amanda is filming, but her narration has changed.